I hid my pain behind designer clothes and expensive vacations and social media posts. "Hi King," I'd write while my king was beating me at home. "Blessed," I'd caption while feeling cursed every single day. It meant being weak. And I'd been taught my whole life that women needed to be strong. That wives needed to endure. That suffering in silence was noble. But here's what I know now. Hiding pain doesn't make you strong. It makes you trapped. Real strength is saying, "This is not okay." Real strength is asking for help. Real strength is leaving even when it's terrifying. Real strength is surviving and then when you're ready helping others survive too. I was 19 when I met David. It was a humid August afternoon in Atlanta. The kind where the sun feels too close and the air smells like new beginnings. I was working part-time at a cafe near Georgia State, saving for community college. My apron smelled like coffee beans and cinnamon, and I remember wishing life felt less uncertain. Then he walked in. David Johnson. Tall, polished, confident. The kind of man who seemed like he belonged in another world. He wore a navy suit even in that heat, and ordered an iced latte like he'd been drinking them his whole life. When I handed him his change he smiled. That kind of smile that lingers a second too long. "Keep it," he said, his eyes locking on mine. "You've got the kind of smile that makes people stay a little longer." I laughed, nervously flattered. Back then I thought confidence meant safety. He came back the next day. And the next. Always at 2:30, always in that same seat by the window. He started learning things about me. How I loved secondhand bookstores, how I hated being called Naomi girl, how I dreamed of becoming a teacher someday. He said he admired that I was simple, grounded. "You're nothing like the women I know," he'd tell me, his voice soft, almost reverent. "You're real." Within 3 months he was driving me home, meeting my parents, buying me little things, jewelry, a phone, dresses I couldn't afford. My mom called him a blessing. My dad called him the kind of man who knows what he wants. I called him love. When he proposed, it wasn't with candles or music. It was in his car parked by the river. He said, "Naomi, you make me calm. You make me want to be better. Marry me." I didn't even hesitate. I said yes. At 19 I thought love was supposed to feel like rescue. Our wedding was small but loud, the way Nigerian American families do it when joy overflows. My mother wore her best lace, shimmering gold under the lights. My father danced until his knees gave out, smiling like he'd just handed me to a king. Everyone said I was lucky. "You've caught a golden fish," they laughed. "Hold him tight," said my auntie. But Linda Martinez, my best friend since we were 12 at Westwood Middle School, pulled me aside during the reception. Linda had been there for everything. My first period, my first heartbreak with Marcus Johnson in 10th grade, the night my grandmother died. She knew me better than anyone. "Livia," she whispered, using the nickname only she was allowed to use. "Are you absolutely sure about this? You barely know him." "I know him enough," I said, defensive. "We've been together 6 months. "Exactly. 6 months. And you're 19. You haven't even finished college yet." I pulled away from her. "Linda, not today. Please. Look around, everyone's happy. My parents finally get to rest. Do you know how many shifts my dad worked to give me even a small wedding? David's taking care of everything now. The reception, the honeymoon to Cancun, everything. He's good to me." Linda's dark eyes searched mine. "That's what worries me. You're not a debt to be paid off, Olivia. You're a person." Before I could respond, David appeared beside us, sliding his arm around my waist like a serpent. "Linda, right? Era talks about you constantly. The troublemaker friend." Linda forced a smile. "That's me. Someone's gotta keep her grounded." David's smile turned cold, sharp at the edges. "Well, I'll take over that job now. She's got a husband to keep her grounded." He steered me away toward the dance floor where my cousin Emma was waving us over for photos. I glanced back at Linda. She stood alone by the champagne fountain, arms crossed, watching me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Later I would recognize it as grief. The reception lasted until 2 in the morning. David's family, his parents, Margaret and James Brown, who'd immigrated from Portland in the 80s and built a successful chain of dry cleaners across Georgia, sat at the head table looking proud. David's younger brother, Jason, 26, sat quietly in the corner, barely touching his food. He was different from David, softer somehow, with kind eyes and an easy smile. He worked in renewable energy consulting and traveled constantly for work. Congratulations, Jason had said earlier, hugging me gently. Welcome to the family, Olivia. I hope my brother treats you right. There was something in his tone, a warning maybe, but I was too swept up in the fantasy to hear it. David stood tall beside me, handsome in his cream suit. The photographers couldn't stop flashing their cameras. He whispered in my ear, "You're my everything, Olivia. My forever." I believed him. But behind those flashes, behind that perfect smile, something dark was brewing. Something I was too young, too in love to see. Please hit the subscribe button, like and comment. David's younger brother, Jason, 26, sat quietly in the corner, barely touching his food. He was different from David, softer somehow, with kind eyes and an easy smile. He worked in renewable energy consulting and traveled constantly for work. Congratulations, Jason had said earlier, hugging me gently. Welcome to the family, Olivia. I hope my brother treats you right. There was something in his tone, a warning maybe, but I was too swept up in the fantasy to hear it. The penthouse. David's penthouse apartment in Buckhead overlooked the Atlanta skyline. Everything was expensive and cold. Modern furniture in blacks and grays, abstract art on the walls that cost more than my parents' mortgage, a kitchen with appliances I didn't know how to use. That first week I tried to be the perfect wife. I'd grown up watching my mother cater to my father. Cooking, cleaning, keeping the peace. A good wife keeps her home, Mama always said. A good wife makes her husband's life easier. So I cooked. Hot dogs, Marconi and cheese sandwich, cheesecake. All the dishes Mama had taught me. I cleaned even though David had a housekeeper who came twice a week. I smiled even when I felt lonely in that big, cold apartment while David worked 12-hour days at Goldman Sachs. The first slap came quietly. A week after the wedding. I had served him Marconi and cheese, his favorite. But I'd been distracted texting Linda back, and the Marconi had sat just a minute too long. It wasn't cold exactly, just nodding hot. David took a bite. Paused. His jaw tightened. "Is this cold?" he asked quietly. I laughed nervously, thinking he was joking. "What? No, I made it like 20 minutes ago. Maybe it cooled down while I was." The slap came fast. Open palm across my left cheek. The sound echoed in the modern empty space. My head snapped to the side, my ear ringing, vision blurring. I touched my face, shocked as if my skin might slide off. "Next time serve me hot food," David said calmly, wiping his mouth with a napkin. "I work 12-hour days dealing with incompetent analysts. Is hot food too much to ask for?" He returned to eating, scrolling through his phone like nothing had happened. I stood frozen, one hand on my burning cheek, the other gripping the counter. I didn't cry. Not yet. I just stood there waiting for him to say he was sorry, that he didn't mean it, that it would never happen again. He didn't. I sat down across from him and ate my own cooling Marconi. Didn't taste a thing. My face throbbed. My chest felt hollow. After dinner, David kissed the top of my head absently and said, "Thanks for dinner, babe. I've got emails to answer." He walked away to his office. I sat alone at the table, a red handprint blooming on my cheek, and wondered if this was normal. If this was what marriage was. The next morning I locked myself in the bathroom and called my mother. My hands shook as I dialed. "Olivia." Mama's voice was bright, cheerful. "How is married life? Are you eating well? Is David treating you like a queen?" "Mama. Can I ask you something?" "Of course, my dear." I swallowed hard. Is it normal if a man gets really upset and... I stopped. The words stuck in my throat like broken glass. "Upset how?" Mama asked, her voice cautious now. "Like if he hits his wife when he's stressed?" Long silence. I could hear her breathing, the sound of dishes being washed in the background, my father's voice asking who was on the phone. "And?" Mama said finally, her voice hesitant. "Sometimes. Men have pressures, you know. Important jobs, responsibilities. Sometimes they lose their temper. But it means you should try harder to please him. You're not a child anymore, Olivia. You're a wife now. Marriage requires sacrifice." My heart sank. "So it's normal? Just be a good wife. Cook his meals properly, keep the house nice, don't argue with him. Men don't like walla. If you do your part, he'll do his." After I hung up, I stared at my reflection in the bathroom mirror. The handprint had faded to a dull pink, but I could still feel it burning. That day I learned that silence in pain was what people called strength. I wore it like perfume. The routine. The violence became routine. A shattered plate here, a busted lip there, a shove that sent me sprawling into the coffee table. But after each blow came gifts. An iPhone 12, a weekend trip to Miami, a diamond necklace worth more than my father's yearly salary as a maintenance supervisor. "I'm sorry, baby," David would say, holding me after. "Work is just so stressful. You know I love you, right? I just need you to be better. For us." And I believed him. Because what else could I do? I was 19, living in his apartment with no job and no degree. My parents were so proud of me for marrying well. How could I tell them I'd made a mistake? On Instagram we were the perfect couple. I posted our happy photos. Us at rooftop restaurants in Atlanta, on the beach in Tybee Island, at family gatherings where David's arm was always around me, protective and loving. "Pi King," I'd caption them. Linda would comment, "Miss you girl, let's get coffee soon?" But I always had an excuse. David didn't like me going out without him. He said Atlanta was dangerous for young women. He said my friends were bad influences. He said he just wanted to keep me safe. Nobody saw the ice behind the diamonds. My cousin Emma, who lived in Decatur with her husband Marcus, called occasionally. "Girl, you living that luxury life," she'd say. Meanwhile I'm over here clipping coupons. Tell David's fine self to hook Marcus up with a job interview. I'd laugh, play along, never mention the bruises I covered with makeup, the way I flinched when David raised his voice, the nights I cried silently in the shower so he wouldn't hear. 6 months into the marriage, David's control tightened. He installed tracking software on my phone. "Just so I know you're safe," he said. He called me 17 times a day, during breakfast, lunch, mid-afternoon, dinner, before bed. If I didn't answer by the third ring, he'd accuse me of cheating, of lying, of disrespecting him. "Where are you?" he'd demand. "Home. Where else would I be? Send me a photo. Right now." I'd take a selfie in the kitchen, the living room, wherever I was, proof that I hadn't escaped. My world shrank to the size of that penthouse. I stopped calling Linda. Stopped going to church with my parents on Sundays. Stopped being Olivia and became only Mrs. David. David's wife, David's property, David's punching bag. The night everything changed. Then came the night he broke my phone. It was a Thursday in November 2018. I remember because the Christmas decorations were already going up in the building lobby. I was sitting on the couch texting Linda. She'd sent me a meme. Something silly about Nigerian mothers and their obsession with vitamin C. I laughed, actually laughed, the sound foreign in my own ears. David came home early. I didn't hear his key in the door. He saw me laughing at my phone, my face lit up in a way it never was around him anymore. "What's so funny?" he asked. I looked up startled. "Oh, just Linda. She sent this silly." "Linda." His voice went flat. "You're texting Linda." "Yeah, she's my best friend. I haven't talked to her in months." He crossed the room in 3 strides, snatched the phone from my hands. "Why are you flirting with girls now? You turning into a lesbian?" "What?" "David, no, she's just." "Just what? Why are you laughing at her messages like that? You never laugh at anything I say." "That's because you never say anything funny. You just yell at me." The words escaped before I could stop them. David's face went dark. "I yell at you? I didn't mean." My phone hit the wall first. The screen shattered, pieces of glass scattering across the hardwood floor. Then his hand was in my hair, yanking my head back. "You think I yell? I'll show you yelling." My head hit the wall next. Once. Twice. The world went blurry. I tasted blood, I'd bitten my tongue. My legs gave out and I crawled toward the bathroom, leaving a trail of blood drops on the expensive white rug David's mother had given us. I made it to the bathroom doorway before the world tilted sideways. My vision narrowed to a pinpoint. I heard David's footsteps behind me, his voice distorted. "Get up. Get up and clean this mess." Then another voice. "Jesus Christ. What happened?" I looked up through the blood and tears. Jason, David's younger brother, stood in the doorway to the penthouse, his face pale with shock. He held a white pharmacy bag in one hand. "I was bringing antibiotics for David's migraine," Jason said, his voice breaking. I didn't know he was." David's voice came from somewhere behind me. "This is between me and my wife, Jason. You should go." But Jason didn't move. He stared at me, Olivia, his sister-in-law, trembling on the bathroom floor, blood pooling around me from the gash on my head where it had hit the wall. "No." Jason said quietly. Then louder, no. This isn't okay. This is never okay. He rushed forward, stepping between me and David. You need to leave, David. No. Before I call the police. You're gonna call the police on your own brother? For this. For attempted murder, yes. David laughed, a sound like breaking glass. She's my wife. This is my house. You got no say here, little brother. I'm not leaving without her. They stared at each other, years of brotherhood and rivalry and unspoken words hanging between them. Finally, David grabbed his car keys from the counter. Fine. Take her. See if I care. She's useless anyway. He slammed the door so hard a picture frame fell off the wall. Jason knelt beside me, his hands shaking. Can you stand? We need to get you to a hospital. No, I whispered. No hospital. They'll ask questions. Olivia. Please. Just help me clean up. Please. He stared at me for a long moment, tears streaming down his face. Then he nodded. Jason cleaned my wounds with gentle hands. He wrapped me in a towel, lifted me as if I weighed nothing, carried me to the guest bedroom. He whispered apologies that weren't his to say. You don't deserve this, he said, his voice cracking. You're not furniture to be kicked around. You're not. God, you're so young. You should be out there living your life, not hiding in here like a prisoner. I watched him, our faces inches apart. His tears dropped onto my arm. In that moment, broken and bleeding, I felt more seen than I had in months. Why didn't you tell anyone? He asked. I didn't know. I swear, Olivia. I've been in Houston on a project for 3 months. If I'd known he was hurting you, I would've. Would've what? He's your brother. He's a monster, Jason said fiercely. Blood doesn't excuse that. He stayed with me that night, sitting in a chair beside the guest bed, making sure I didn't pass out from the concussion. We talked in whispers. About his job and renewable energy, about my abandoned plans to study nursing, about the families we came from where women were taught to endure and men were taught to dominate. My father hit my mother, Jason admitted. Growing up, David saw it. I think he thought it was normal. Is that supposed to make me feel better? No. There's no excuse. I wish I'd said something back then. Stood up to Dad. Maybe David would have turned out different. At 3 a.m, David still hadn't come home. Jason's hand rested on the bed near mine. Our fingers were almost touching. I should go, he said. Before David gets back. Don't, I heard myself say. Please don't leave me alone. That night, one mistake happened. A forbidden moment born from trauma and loneliness and the desperate human need to feel something other than pain. I reached for Jason and he didn't pull away. We were two broken people seeking comfort in the worst possible way. Afterward, lying in the darkness, neither of us spoke. The guilt was immediate and crushing. I'm sorry, Jason whispered. God, I'm so sorry. That shouldn't have happened. No, I agreed. It shouldn't have. I'm leaving for South Africa in 2 days. 6-month contract. Maybe that's for the best. Yeah, I said, my voice hollow. For the best. Jason left before dawn. I never told him what that night had created. Weeks later, staring at the double line on the pregnancy test, I felt like thunder had struck my chest. Jason was somewhere over the Atlantic Ocean, flying to Johannesburg. David was in the shower, singing off-key in one of his good moods that never lasted. I hid the test in my purse, my mind racing. The timing was impossible to explain. David and I had barely touched each other in weeks. He'd been too busy with work and I'd been too afraid of triggering his temper. But one night, drunk after a client dinner, he'd come home wanting to make up for the wall incident. I'd endured it, silent and still, my mind elsewhere. It was possible, barely possible, that the baby was his. That night at dinner, David was complaining as usual. The partners at work are idiots. Johnson can't calculate basic risk assessment. And don't even get me started on the new intern. Diversity hire, clearly. Can barely read a spreadsheet. David, I said quietly. What? I'm pregnant. The fork stopped halfway to his mouth. He stared at me, eyes wide. Then his face split into a grin, the first genuine smile I'd seen in months. Pregnant? Are you serious? Yes. He jumped up, pulled me into his arms, actually laughing. Finally. My son is coming. Olivia, do you know what this means? My parents are going to be so happy. A grandson to carry on the Brown name. It might be a girl, I ventured. His smile faltered slightly. Sure, maybe. But probably a boy. Strong Brown's genes. He kissed my forehead, my cheeks, my stomach. I'm gonna be a father. We need to celebrate. I'm taking you to Bones tomorrow night, that fancy steakhouse. And we need to tell everyone. That night, David didn't hit me. He held me gently, whispered plans about nurseries and private schools and family legacy. I lay awake beside him, one hand on my stomach, wondering whose child was growing inside me and whether I'd ever be able to look at them without remembering that night that I gave birth to a girl on July 15, 2019, at Emory University Hospital in Atlanta. Labor lasted 14 hours. My mother held one hand, David held the other. When they placed her on my chest, tiny and perfect and screaming, I fell in love instantly and completely. Ava, I whispered. Her name is Ava. David stood over us, staring at the baby. I held my breath, waiting for disappointment that I'd failed to give him a son. But instead, his eyes filled with tears. She's beautiful, he said, touching her tiny hand with one finger. She's perfect. Ava had a wide smile even from birth, bright eyes that seemed to see everything. As she grew, I searched her face constantly for clues. Did she look like David? Like Jason? Like me? Her smile was wide, bright, innocent. Just like Jason's. But babies all kind of look the same, I told myself. It didn't mean anything. David adored her. He bought her jewelry before she could even sit up. Tiny gold bracelets, pearl earrings, a diamond pendant with her name. He sang to her every night, off-key lullabies that made her giggle. He took more photos of her than anyone I'd ever seen. For a few months, I dared to hope that maybe fatherhood had changed him. Maybe we could be a real family. But the beatings didn't stop. He just hid them better. A hard grip on my arm that left bruises I could cover. A push that looked accidental. Cruel words whispered when Ava was napping. You're getting fat. You're a terrible mother. No wonder you can barely handle one baby, you're useless. I threw myself into motherhood, into being everything for Ava that I couldn't be for myself. I sang to her, read to her, played with her for hours. She was my light in the darkness, my reason to wake up, my reason to survive. When Ava was 3, crawling around the penthouse, David lost his temper over a work call gone wrong. He grabbed a lamp and threw it. It shattered 2 feet from where Ava was playing with blocks. She screamed, terrified. I scooped her up and locked us in her nursery. David pounded on the door. Open up. I'm not going to hurt her. What kind of father do you think I am? The kind who throws lamps, I thought but didn't say. That was the night I started saving money. $20 here, $50 there, skimmed from grocery money, from the cash David gave me for household expenses. I opened a secret bank account at a branch across town, listing my mother as the co-owner in case David ever found it. Took me 4 years to save $8,000. Not enough to truly escape, but enough to maybe survive a month or 2 if I had to run. When Ava turned 7, Jason came back to Atlanta. He'd been based in Houston for most of the past years, coming home only for Christmas and Thanksgiving, always polite and distant with me. At family gatherings we barely spoke. He'd play with Ava, swing her around until she shrieked with laughter, but he avoided my eyes that I figured he knew. Maybe he'd done the math, counted back 9 months from Ava's birth to that awful November night. Maybe he hated himself for it. Maybe he hated me. We never spoke of that night, not once in 7 years. But then in April 2026 his company transferred him back to Atlanta permanently. David threw a welcome home party at our penthouse, now a 4-bedroom unit he'd purchased when his salary jumped to $250,000 a year. The party was grand, everything David did was grand. Family, friends, colleagues, even a reporter from the Atlanta Business Chronicle covering the rising stars of Georgia's financial sector. Caterers served Afrofusion cuisine, jollof rice arancini, spiced lamb chops, plantain carpaccio. Wine flowed freely. David got drunk. Not sloppy drunk, but the loose, loud kind of drunk where his mask slipped. He told embarrassing stories about his colleagues, laughed too hard at his own jokes, put his arm around me in that performative way that looked loving but felt like a cage. Jason arrived late, looking tired. He'd lost weight, I noticed. There were new lines around his eyes. Uncle Jason. Ava shrieked, running to him. At 7 years old, she was all limbs and energy, her hair in 2 puff balls I'd carefully braided that morning. Jason scooped her up and for a moment I saw it clearly. The same smile, the same way their eyes crinkled at the corners. My heart clenched. "Hey little A," Jason said. "You're getting so big. What are they feeding you?" "Mommy makes the best pancakes," Ava said proudly. "With chocolate chips and strawberries." Jason met my eyes over Ava's head. The look lasted only a second, but it contained 7 years of unspoken words. Guilt, fear, question, regret. "That's great, kiddo," he said softly. The party went on. David's mother, Margaret, held court in the living room, talking about her expanding dry cleaning empire. Now 15 locations across Georgia. David's father, James, discussed politics with other Nigerian immigrants, their voices rising as they debated elections back home. My parents sat quietly in a corner, looking out of place in this world of wealth and status. My father wore the same suit from my wedding, slightly too tight now. My mother kept smoothing her dress nervously, a cheap thing from Macy's clearance rack that she'd probably saved for months to buy. "Mama," I said, sitting beside her. "You okay?" She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "We're fine, dear. This is all very nice. Very big. Too big. No, you're blessed. We're proud of you." But I could see the concern in her face, the way her eyes tracked David across the room, the questions she'd never ask aloud. Around midnight, when Ava had fallen asleep on the couch and most guests had left, David stumbled to the center of the room with a wine glass. "Speech," someone called out. David grinned, swaying slightly. "You know what? I got an idea. A fun idea." He pointed at Jason, at his parents, at Ava sleeping. "Let's all take a DNA test." The room went quiet. "David," Margaret said carefully. "That's not." No, hear me out." David insisted. "There's this company 23andMe, right? You spit in a tube and they tell you everything. Where your ancestors came from, health stuff, all that. Wouldn't that be fun? A family project." "That sounds expensive," James said. "I'll pay for everyone. Come on, it'll be interesting. We can do family trees, connect with distant relatives, all that genealogy stuff." My heart nearly stopped. "David, it's not necessary. These tests aren't always accurate and—" "Why are you against it?" he asked, his eyes suddenly sharp despite the alcohol. "Got something to hide?" Everyone laughed, nervous and uncertain. Jason stared at his drink. My mother gripped my father's hand. "I'm just saying it's expensive and unnecessary," I said carefully. "I said I'll pay. So we're doing it. It'll be fun." David pulled out his phone. "I'm ordering the kits right now. 12 kits. One for everyone here." True to his word, the kits arrived a week later. David made a whole event of it, gathering everyone again, taking photos as we spit into tubes, sealing them up, sending them off to the lab. "Results in 4 to 6 weeks, David said cheerfully. "This is going to be so cool." I could barely breathe. Jason wouldn't look at me. The secret we'd kept for 7 years was about to detonate our entire world. The next 6 weeks were the longest of my life. I walked around in a fog of dread, jumping every time my phone rang, checking the mail compulsively, barely sleeping. Linda called me one evening. We'd reconnected slightly over the past year, meeting for coffee once a month when David was at work. "You sound terrible," she said bluntly. "What's wrong?" "Nothing. Just tired." "Livia, don't lie to me. I've known you since you had braces and terrible bangs. What's going on?" I almost told her. The words were right there, threatening to spill out. I cheated on David 7 years ago with his brother, and Ava might not be David's daughter, and we took a DNA test, and my entire life is about to implode. But I couldn't. "Just work stuff," I said instead. "David's been stressed. He's always stressed. And he takes it out on you." "Linda, don't Linda me. I know you think I don't notice, but I do. The way you flinch sometimes. How you always have new bruises that you blame on clumsiness. How you stopped going out, stopped calling, basically disappeared from your own life. I'm not stupid, Livia." Tears filled my eyes. "I can't talk about this right now." "When then?" "When he puts you in the hospital. When it's too late." "I have to go. Ava needs me." I hung up before she could respond, guilt washing over me. Linda deserved better than my lies. But the truth was too dangerous, too complicated, too everything. David seemed cheerful during those weeks, happier than I'd seen him in years. Work was going well, he'd been promoted to vice president. Ava was excelling in 2nd grade. bringing home gold stars and spelling tests with perfect scores. To anyone watching, we were the perfect family. Only I knew we were built on a foundation of violence and lies. Jason avoided family gatherings during the wait. Too much travel for work, he claimed, but I knew better. He was hiding just like me, waiting for the bomb to drop. The results came on a Tuesday afternoon in early June 2026. David called me from work. They're here. The DNA results. They emailed me the link. My mouth went dry. Oh. I'm coming home early. Invite everyone over. Mom, Dad, Jason, your parents. We'll open them together. Make it a party. David, maybe we should just look at them ourselves first. Why? What are you afraid of? His voice went cold. Unless there's something you need to tell me? Oh, of course not. I'll call everyone. My hands shook as I dialed numbers. Margaret and James, excited about seeing their heritage mapped out. My parents, confused but agreeable. Jason, who went silent when I told him. Jason, you there? Yeah, he said finally. I'll be there. Everyone gathered in our living room at 7 p.m. Ava, confused about why everyone looked so serious, played with her dolls in the corner. David had his laptop set up, projecting onto the TV screen. Okay, he said, rubbing his hands together. Let's see what we've got. Mom, Dad, you want to go first? We spent an hour going through results. Margaret was 98% Nigerian, specifically Igbo. James had surprising traces of Cameroonian heritage. My mother discovered ancestors from Ghana. Everyone oohed and awed, discussed distant relatives, laughed at unexpected connections. Then David pulled up Ava's results. Let's see what our girl is made of, he said, clicking through screens. She should be half me, half Olivia, which means... Wait. He stopped. Stared at the screen. Clicked refresh. Stared some more. The room went quiet. Huh, David said softly. That's interesting. What? Margaret asked. What does it say? David turned to Jason, his face unreadable. You want to tell us something? Jason stood frozen, his face pale. What? What are you talking about? David slowly turned the laptop around. On the screen, clear as day, Ava shares 50% DNA with user Jason Brown. Relationship, parent/child. My vision blurred. The air vanished from the room. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't do anything but stare at that screen. She's not mine, David said quietly, almost conversationally. My daughter, the girl I've raised for 7 years, bought gifts for, sang to sleep, loved, isn't mine. She never was. Everyone started talking at once. Margaret gasping, James demanding explanations, my mother crying. I sat paralyzed, watching my life disintegrate. Jason's mouth opened, but no words came. He looked at me, then at Ava, then back at the screen. How? Margaret demanded. How did this happen? When did? She cut herself off as realization dawned. That night. When Jason found you injured. Oh my God. Then why didn't you say anything? I asked David, my voice barely a whisper. When did you figure it out? Everyone turned to me. David smiled, that cold, calculating smile I'd learned to fear. I knew from the moment she was born, he said calmly. That smile. Those eyes. She looked nothing like me, everything like Jason. I got my own paternity test when she was 3 months old. Been knowing for 7 years. The room exploded. Jason stumbled backward. My father stood up, face twisted in shock and anger. Margaret looked like she might faint. Then why? I demanded, standing on shaking legs. Why didn't you say anything? Why did you keep us here? David's smile widened. Because I wanted you to suffer. Both of you. He gestured at me and Jason. Every time I kissed that girl, every time I bought her gifts, took her to the park, tucked her in bed, I imagined the pain it would cause when you realized I knew. That I'd always known. That I let you live in your pathetic little lie while I held all the cards. You're sick, Jason said hoarsely. You're actually sick. No, brother. I'm strategic. There's a difference. David walked over to where Ava sat, oblivious to the adult drama unfolding. He knelt beside her, stroked her hair gently. Sweet girl, he said softly. Such a pity. Pity. I echoed, fear crawling up my spine. What do you mean? David leaned close to Ava's ear and whispered something I couldn't hear. Then he straightened up and looked directly at me. She kept eating from your plate. Sharing meals with you. That's a shame. The words hit me like ice water. What do you mean? David smiled. You've been sharing meals, right? Like good mothers and daughters do. You'd make her plate then eat from the same pot. Or she'd steal bites from your fork. Really. Very bonding. My heart stopped. David, what did you do? Ava started coughing. Small at first, then violent racking coughs that shook her small frame. Her eyes rolled back slightly. Ava. I lunged toward her. She couldn't catch her breath. Her lips were turning blue. She clutched at her throat, making horrible choking sounds. Oh my God. Margaret screamed. Call 911. Jason grabbed Ava, already running for the door. I'm driving, it'll be faster. I ran after them, my mother behind me. David stood in the living room watching us go with that same cold smile. You might want to hurry, he called out. Thallium poisoning is time-sensitive. Though I suppose you know that now. The hospital. Emory University Hospital emergency room. Fluorescent lights. The smell of antiseptic and fear. Jason carried Ava through the automatic doors, shouting for help. She can't breathe. She's been poisoned. Nurses swarmed immediately. They took Ava from Jason's arms, rushed her onto a gurney. A doctor appeared, barking orders I couldn't understand through my panic. What did she ingest? The doctor demanded. Ma'am, what did your daughter eat? I don't know, I sobbed. Her father, my husband, he said something about thallium. He said she's been poisoned. The doctor's face went grave. How long? When did symptoms start? Just now. 5 minutes ago. But he said slow acting. Low doses. He's been poisoning her. Jesus Christ. The doctor turned to a nurse. Get toxicology down here now. Run a full heavy metals panel. Start chelation therapy. We're assuming thallium exposure until proven otherwise. And somebody call the police. They wheeled Ava away through double doors marked, authorized person only. I tried to follow, but a nurse stopped me gently. You need to let them work. Please have a seat. We'll update you as soon as we can. I collapsed into a plastic chair. Jason paced the hallway, his hands shaking. My mother sat beside me, praying under her breath. My father stood against the wall, looking 10 years older than he had an hour ago. How could he? My mother whispered. His own child, the child he raised, how could anyone do that? She wasn't his child, I said numbly. That's why. He's been punishing her for what I did. What you did? Jason spun around, his voice raw. What we did. This is on both of us, Olivia. That night. God, that night ruined everything. You think I don't know that? You think I don't wake up every day hating myself? Before Jason could respond, Margaret and James burst through the emergency room doors. Behind them, in handcuffs, was David, flanked by 2 police officers. That's her. David called out, pointing at me. That's my wife. She's the one who poisoned our daughter. She's been trying to kill her for months. Sir, you need to remain silent, one officer said firmly. I have rights. She's setting me up. That woman destroyed my family, slept with my brother, and now she's trying to frame me for. Sir. The officer's voice cut through David's rant. One more word and we add obstruction to your charges. They led David past us. He locked eyes with me, and for just a moment his mask dropped. Pure hatred stared back at me, hatred mixed with something else. Satisfaction. Even in handcuffs, being arrested for poisoning a child, David looked satisfied. He's insane, Jason breathed. He's actually insane. A detective approached us. Detective Maria Rodriguez, late 40s, with kind eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. She'd seen everything in her 20 years with Atlanta PD. Mrs. David? I need to ask you some questions about your husband and your daughter. For the next hour I told her everything. The abuse, the control, the night with Jason, David's confession that he'd known all along. Detective Rodriguez took notes, her expression growing darker with each revelation. And you never reported the domestic violence? She asked. No. I was scared. I thought it was my fault. It wasn't, Rodriguez said firmly. None of this is your fault. Abuse never is. But I need to ask, did you notice anything unusual about your daughter's health in recent months? Thought back. She's been tired. More than usual. She'd complain about her stomach hurting, about headaches. Her hair started falling out a little. The pediatrician said it was stress, maybe from school. Thallium poisoning, Rodriguez said grimly. Classic symptoms: hair loss, fatigue, gastrointestinal issues. If your husband has been administering small doses over time, he's been very careful. Very calculated. Can you prove it? Jason asked. Can you prove he did this? We'll search your home, check for traces of thallium, pull phone records, computer searches. If he bought it online or researched it, we'll find out. Plus we have his admission. Multiple witnesses heard him confess. Will Ava be okay? I whispered. Rodriguez's expression softened. I don't know. I'm not a doctor. But they're doing everything they can. We waited. Hours blurred together. Margaret sat with her head in her hands, sobbing quietly. James paced, making phone calls to relatives, trying to explain the inexplicable. My parents held each other, looking lost. Jason sat beside me, not touching but close. I'm so sorry, he said for the 100th time. Stop apologizing. It doesn't help. I should've. Should've what? Traveled back in time? Changed the past? We both made choices, Jason. Terrible choices. And now Ava's paying for them. She's my daughter, he said quietly. I have a daughter. And I might lose her before I ever get to really know her. The words hung between us, heavy and true. At 3 a.m. a doctor finally emerged. Dr. Patel, the toxicologist. We all rushed toward him. She's stable, he said, and the relief was so intense I thought my legs might give out. We've started chelation therapy to bind and remove the thallium from her system. Blood tests confirm chronic low-level exposure. Probably over several months, maybe longer. Will she recover? Margaret asked. Dr. Patel hesitated. Thallium is highly toxic. Even with treatment there can be lasting effects. Neurological damage, kidney problems, hair loss that may be permanent. It's too early to tell the full extent. But she's young and we caught it in time. That gives her a fighting chance. Can we see her? I asked. Soon. She's resting now. We'll let you know when she's ready for visitors. The investigation. Over the next 3 days, while Ava fought for her life in a hospital bed, the investigation unfolded. Police searched our penthouse in Buckhead. They found thallium sulfate hidden in David's home office, disguised in a vitamin bottle. They found internet search history on his laptop. Thallium poisoning symptoms, undetectable poisons, how to slowly poison someone, thallium half-life in children. They found a journal, handwritten, meticulous, horrifying. David had documented everything. Every dose he'd given Ava, slipped into her orange juice or mixed into her cereal. Every symptom she displayed. Every doctor's appointment where I'd worried and he'd reassured me it was nothing. Month 3. Ava showing signs of fatigue. Olivia is worried. Told her it's normal for active children. Increased dosage slightly. Month 6. Hair thinning noticeable. Had to convince Olivia to switch shampoos instead of seeing doctor. This is working perfectly. Month 9. Ava complained of stomach pain. She took her to pediatrician. Tests came back normal as expected with thallium levels still below critical threshold. Doctor blamed stress. Idiots. Detective Rodriguez showed me excerpts during one of my interviews at the police station. I read them and threw up into the trash can beside her desk. He was experimenting on her, I said, wiping my mouth. Like she was a lab rat. He's a sociopath, Rodriguez said bluntly. In my 20 years doing this I've seen a lot. But this level of calculation, of cruelty? This is extreme even for us. The media got hold of the story. It was everything they loved. Wealthy American family, betrayal, attempted murder, forbidden affair. Our faces appeared on every news channel. Prominent Atlanta banker arrested for poisoning stepdaughter. DNA test reveals shocking family secret, leads to attempted murder charges. Domestic violence hidden behind luxury lifestyle. My phone exploded with calls from reporters, distant relatives, people I hadn't spoken to in years. Linda came to the hospital immediately. I knew something was wrong, she said, hugging me tight. I knew it. Why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you let me help you? I thought I could handle it. I thought I could protect her. And you did. She's alive, Livia. Because of you, she's alive. But I didn't feel like a hero. I felt like a failure. A mother who'd let her daughter be poisoned for months without noticing. A wife who'd stayed with an abuser. A woman who'd made one terrible choice and watched it ripple out into devastation. Ava wakes up. On the fourth day, Ava woke up. Her eyes fluttered open, unfocused at first, then landing on me sitting beside her bed. "Mommy." Her voice was rough, strained. "I'm here, baby. I'm right here. What happened? Why does everything hurt? How do you tell a 7-year-old that the man she called daddy tried to kill her? That he'd been slowly poisoning her for months? That her entire life was a lie? You got very sick," I said carefully. "But you're going to be okay. The doctors are taking good care of you. Where's daddy?" I glanced at the detective stationed outside Ava's room, protection in case David somehow made bail. "He's not here right now." "Is he mad at me? Is that why I'm sick? Because I did something wrong?" My heart shattered. "No, baby. No. You didn't do anything wrong. You're perfect. This isn't your fault." Over the next week, as Ava slowly recovered, I tried to shield her from the truth. But kids are perceptive. She saw the police outside her room. She heard whispered conversations between nurses. She noticed that David never came to visit. "Mommy, am I going to die?" she asked one night. "No, sweetheart. You're getting better every day." But I heard the doctors talking. They said poison. Was I poisoned? Like in the fairy tales? I took a deep breath. There was no easy way to do this. "Honey, someone gave you something that made you very sick." "Who?" I couldn't say it. Couldn't form the words. But I didn't have to. Ava was smart. Too smart. "Daddy," she whispered. "Daddy did it. That's why he's not here. That's why everyone looks scared." Tears streamed down my face. "I'm so sorry, baby. I'm so sorry." Ava was quiet for a long time. Then, did he ever love me? The question destroyed me. I think he loved the idea of you. But he was sick, Ava. In his mind. And sick people sometimes do terrible things. Am I still his daughter? "No," I said firmly. "You were never his daughter." "Not really." "Then whose daughter am I?" I looked toward the hallway where Jason sat, present every day but always at a distance, respecting boundaries I hadn't defined. He caught my eye through the window, stood slowly. "Can I tell you a story?" I asked Ava. "A long, complicated, grown-up story?" She nodded. I told her everything. Age-appropriate version but honest. The abuse, the night Jason helped me, the mistake we made, the secret we'd kept. Jason came in halfway through and held her hand as I explained that he was her biological father. "So Uncle Jason is really Daddy Jason?" Ava asked. Jason's eyes filled with tears. "If you want me to be. I know I haven't been there the way I should have. But I'd like to try. If that's okay with you and your mom." Ava looked between us, processing. 7 years old, recovering from poisoning, learning her entire identity had shifted. She should have been playing with dolls and watching cartoons, not dealing with adult trauma. "Can I think about it?" she asked finally. "Of course," Jason said. "Take all the time you need." The trial. David's trial began in September 2024. Attempted murder, child abuse, assault, domestic violence. The charges stacked up. His lawyers tried every angle. Temporary insanity, crime of passion, arguing that David had been psychologically traumatized by the betrayal. The prosecution, led by Assistant District Attorney Karen Chen, a fierce woman in her 50s who'd built her career on domestic violence cases, destroyed every defense. She presented the journal, the internet searches, the hidden thallium, testimonies from doctors about Ava as systematic poisoning, testimonies from me about years of abuse, testimonies from Jason about the night he found me bleeding. David sat in court in an orange jumpsuit, looking smaller than I remembered. His empire had crumbled. Goldman Sachs had fired him immediately. His assets were frozen pending civil lawsuits. I'd filed for divorce and custody, seeking damages for what he'd done. His parents sat in the gallery looking destroyed. Margaret had aged 10 years in 3 months. James's dry cleaning business was suffering. People didn't want to support the family of a monster. On the witness stand I told my story. Every slap, every insult, every moment of terror. David's lawyer tried to discredit me. Mrs. David, isn't it true that you committed adultery with your husband's brother? Yes. And you kept that secret for 7 years, letting your husband believe the child was his? Yes. So you're admitting you're a liar? Someone who deceives. Adhan objected. Relevance, Your Honor. The defendant is on trial for attempted murder, not for being cheated on. Sustained. Counselor, move on. But the damage was done. Some people in that courtroom looked at me with judgment. The woman who cheated, who lied, who contributed to this tragedy. Linda testified about my withdrawn behavior, the bruises she'd noticed, her concerns that I'd brushed off. My mother testified about the phone call where I'd asked if hitting was normal. Neighbors testified about hearing screaming from our penthouse. Jason testified last. He was calm, collected, honest about his role in the affair. I failed her, he said simply. I saw what my brother was doing, and instead of getting her help, instead of calling the police or telling my parents, I ran away. I took a job overseas because I was a coward. And my daughter almost died because of it. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. They came back with a verdict, guilty on all counts. David showed no emotion as the judge sentenced him to 25 years in prison. No parole eligibility for 15 years. By the time he got out, he'd be 54 years old. Ava would be 32. As they led him away, David turned and looked directly at me. And he smiled. That same cold, calculating smile. Even defeated, even going to prison, he'd won something. He'd destroyed my marriage, exposed my secret, nearly killed Ava, torn apart 2 families. In his twisted mind, he'd had his revenge. Ava survived. Barely. The doctor said we'd caught it just in time. Another few weeks and the damage would have been irreversible. As it was, she walked with a slight limp now. The thallium had affected her nervous system, leaving her with peripheral neuropathy that might or might not improve with time. She woke up from nightmares, screaming about monsters in the kitchen, poison in her cereal, ghosts with her father's face. We started therapy, individual for her, family therapy with Jason and me, group therapy with other children who'd survived abuse. Her hair grew back thin and patchy. She wore it in colorful scarves now, refusing to hide but also refusing to look like she had before. That was old Ava, she explained. I'm new Ava now. I took her and left that cursed penthouse in Buckhead with only a small bag. Clothes, photos, her favorite stuffed elephant. The rest didn't matter. It was all tainted, all tied to David, all toxic. We moved into a tiny 2-bedroom apartment in Decatur, near Linda. The place was small, the walls thin, the neighborhood loud. But it was ours. Safe. Free. I got a job as a receptionist at a dental office. The pay was terrible compared to the lifestyle I'd had before, but I didn't care. I worked, came home, cooked dinner with Ava, helped her with homework, tucked her into bed. We danced barefoot in the apartment at midnight when she couldn't sleep. I read her bedtime stories, carefully vetted ones with no poisonings, no evil step-parents. I braided her hair when it grew long enough, gentle with the tender spots where it had fallen out. Every time I looked at her, I was reminded that survival is loud, messy, and beautiful. She saved me even without knowing it. Her existence forced me to be brave when I wanted to give up, to leave when staying seemed easier, to fight when fighting felt impossible. Jason's choice. Jason came to see us a few weeks after the trial ended. He knocked softly on our apartment door holding flowers. Sunflowers, Ava's favorite. Hey, he said when I opened the door. Hey. We stood there awkwardly. 7 years of secrets, months of trauma, a lifetime of consequences between us. Is Ava here? I brought flowers. She's at therapy. With Dr. Morrison. Right. Of course. He held out the flowers anyway. These are for you then. I took them, stepped back to let him in. The apartment was humble compared to the penthouse. Mismatched furniture from thrift stores, walls that needed painting, a kitchen the size of a closet. But it was home. Jason sat on the edge of the couch like he might break something. How are you holding up? Honestly, I don't know. Some days I feel free. Some days I feel like I'm drowning. Ava has nightmares. I have nightmares. We're both in therapy 3 times a week. I'm in therapy too, Jason admitted. Trying to process everything. The guilt. God, the guilt is crushing. I know what you mean. We sat in silence. Finally, Jason spoke. I want to be in her life. In Ava's life. As her father. If you'll let me. I looked at him for a long time. You could have saved us earlier. He nodded, tears filling his eyes. I know. When you found me that night bleeding on the bathroom floor, you should have called the police. You should have taken me to a hospital. You should have done something. I know. But you didn't. You ran away. Left me there with him. I know. His voice broke. I hate myself for it. Every single day I hate myself. Good, I said, and the word came out harsh, sharp. You should. Jason flinched like I'd slapped him. But, I continued softer now, hating yourself doesn't help Ava. She needs a father. A real father who shows up, who's present, who doesn't run away when things get hard. Can you be that? I want to try. Trying isn't enough, Jason. She's been through hell. She's 7 years old and she's been poisoned by the only father she's ever known, learned that her entire identity was a lie, and watched her whole world fall apart. She doesn't need someone who wants to try. She needs someone who will absolutely, without question, be there. Jason met my eyes. I will be. I swear to you, Olivia. I will be there for her. And for you if you'll let me. This isn't about us, I said firmly. Whatever happened between us, that's done. We're not a couple. We're not getting together. We're co-parents. That's it. I understand. Do you? Because I need you to really understand. I don't forgive you for running away. I might never forgive you. But Ava deserves to know her father, and I won't keep you from her out of spite. So you can be in her life. But you have to earn it. Every single day you have to earn it. I will, Jason promised. Whatever it takes. Building something new. Slowly, carefully we built something new. Jason came by twice a week at first, then 3 times, then 4. He took Ava to the park, helped with homework, came to therapy sessions when Dr. Morrison suggested family integration. Ava was cautious with him at first. Are you going to leave again? She asked during one visit. No, Jason said firmly. I'm here to stay. Do you promise? I promise. Daddy, David, he made promises too. He lied. Jason knelt down to her level. You're right. Adults lie sometimes. And I've made mistakes before, but I'm going to try really, really hard not to make them again. And if I mess up, I'll tell you. I'll apologize. I won't pretend everything's okay when it's not. Why did you wait so long to be my dad? The question gutted him. I watched Jason struggle with how to answer, how to explain adult complications to a child. I was scared, he said finally. I made a mistake a long time ago and I didn't know how to fix it. So I ran away. And that was wrong. I should have stayed and been brave. But I wasn't. And I'm sorry. Ava considered this. Mommy says brave isn't not being scared. Brave is being scared and doing it anyway. Your mom is very smart. I know. Over months, Jason proved himself. He showed up for school plays where Ava had 2 lines and forgot one of them. He came to doctor appointments and held her hand during blood draws to check her improving toxin levels. He learned to braid her hair, badly at first, then better. He read the parenting books I recommended. He apologized when he screwed up. And he kept his distance from me. Not cold, not hostile, just appropriate. We were co-parents. We were civil. We were never going to be more than that. My parents struggled with everything. My father stopped speaking to me for 2 months after the trial, ashamed of what had happened, of the scandal, of having a daughter who'd cheated. My mother tried to play peacemaker. He'll come around. He's just processing. When Dad finally called, his voice was rough. I failed you. What? No, Dad, I failed you. When you called and asked if it was normal for men to hit their wives, I should have driven to your house immediately. I should have dragged you home. I should have protected you. Instead, I let my pride and my old-fashioned ideas blind me. And my granddaughter almost died because of it. Dad, this isn't your fault. We raised you in a culture that told you to submit, to endure, to be strong by staying silent. That's on us. On me and your mother. We taught you wrong and I'm sorry. We cried together over the phone. Then Dad came to visit, met Ava for the first time since the poisoning, and held her like she might disappear. I love you, Daddy Kenneth, Ava said, using the name she'd given him to distinguish him from the other daddy who'd hurt her. I love you too, little one. And I promise, I will never let anyone hurt you again. David's last message. A year after the trial, I received a letter from David. It came from Hayes State Prison in Tryon, Georgia, where he was serving his sentence. I almost threw it away unopened. Linda, visiting for coffee, grabbed my hand. "Don't read it if you're not ready." "I don't know if I'll ever be ready." "Then throw it away. You don't owe him anything, not even your attention." But curiosity won. That night, after Ava went to bed, I opened the envelope. "Dear Olivia, I've had a lot of time to think. Prison gives you nothing but time. Everyone here says I should apologize, say I was wrong, beg for forgiveness. My lawyers say a show of remorse might help with parole in 15 years. But I'm not sorry. You destroyed my life. You made me a fool. You let me raise another man's child while you played the perfect wife. Every time I looked at Ava, I saw your betrayal. Every smile, every laugh, every 'I love you, Daddy.' It was all a reminder of what you and Jason did. So yes, I poisoned her. Slowly, carefully, perfectly. I wanted you to suffer like I suffered. I wanted you to watch her fade and not know why, the same way I watched my marriage fade knowing exactly why. Did it make me feel better? No. Does anything make me feel better in this hellhole? Also no. But at least I had my revenge. At least you finally know what it's like to lose something precious. They told me Ava survived. That she's walking again, going to school, living with you and Jason like a happy little family. Good for her. She's innocent in all this, I know that. But innocence doesn't matter when you're collateral damage in someone else's war. I hope you never forget what you did to cause this. I hope every time you look at her limp, every time she wakes up screaming, every time she asks why her daddy tried to kill her, you remember. This is your fault. You made me a monster. And monsters don't apologize. David. I read the letter 3 times. Each time my hands shook less. Each time the words hurt less. By the 3rd reading I felt nothing but pity. David was wrong. I didn't make him a monster, he chose that himself. Betrayal doesn't excuse attempted murder. Pain doesn't justify poisoning a child. He'd had choices at every turn. To leave me, to demand a divorce, to expose the truth, to walk away. Instead he'd chosen cruelty. I burned the letter in the kitchen sink, watching the paper curl and blacken. Ava wandered in, rubbing her eyes. "Mommy? What are you doing?" "Burning something that doesn't deserve space in our home." "Is it from David?" She didn't call him Dad anymore. Just David. The man who used to be her father but wasn't anymore. Yes. Was it mean? Very mean. "Are you sad?" I looked at my daughter. 7 years old, too wise, too experienced with trauma and tragedy. But also strong. Resilient. Surviving. "No," I said honestly. "I'm not sad. I'm free." Ava hugged me tight. "I'm glad we're free, Mommy." "Me too, baby. Me too." New beginnings. 2 years after leaving David, I enrolled in nursing school. It was something I'd wanted to do before I got married, before David convinced me I didn't need to work. That my job was to be his wife. At 28 years old, I was older than most of my classmates. But I didn't care. I studied late into the night after Ava went to bed. Linda helped quiz me on anatomy. Jason took Ava on weekends so I could focus on exams. "I'm proud of you," Jason said one Saturday morning when he picked up Ava for their daddy-daughter day. The zoo, then ice cream, then a movie. For what? For building a life. For not letting what happened destroy you. Some days it feels like it did destroy me. Like I'm just pretending to be whole. Then you're really good at pretending. Because from where I'm standing, you look pretty whole. He left with Ava, their laughter echoing in the stairwell. I watched them go, feeling that familiar pang of loss mixed with relief. Jason was a good father now. But he wasn't my partner. That ship had sailed, sunk, and wasn't coming back. Linda set me up on dates occasionally. "You're 28, not dead," she insisted. "You deserve romance, companionship, someone who treats you right." But I wasn't ready. Maybe I'd never be ready. The idea of trusting another man, of being vulnerable, of letting someone into my space. It terrified me. "I'm good alone," I told Linda after a particularly disastrous blind date with her cousin's friend who'd spent the entire dinner talking about his ex-wife. "You're not alone. You have Ava, me, Jason, your parents. That's not the same as a partner." "Maybe not. But it's enough." And it was. Some days it was more than enough. Ava's question. On Ava's 10th birthday, 3 years after the poisoning, we threw a party at our apartment. Nothing fancy, just Linda's family, my parents, Jason, and a few of Ava's school friends. Homemade cake, pizza from Little Italy down the street, decorations from the dollar store. Ava wore a purple dress she'd picked out herself, her hair grown back thick and beautiful, styled in elaborate braids courtesy of Jason's surprisingly good skills. As kids played pin the tail on the donkey and screamed over musical chairs, Ava pulled me aside to her bedroom. "Mommy, can I ask you something?" "Of course, baby, do you think?" She paused, picking at her bedspread. "Do you think David ever really loved me? Even a little bit?" 3 years later the question still came up. 3 years of therapy, of healing, of building a new life, and still that wound remained. "I think David loved the idea of you," I said carefully. "I think he loved having a daughter to show off, to buy things for, to post about on social media. But real love, the kind that's selfless and protective and puts the other person first? Well, David wasn't capable of that kind of love. Not for you, not for me, probably not for anyone. So it wasn't my fault?" "Oh, baby." I pulled her close. "It was never your fault. Not for one single second. You were a child. You are a child. None of what happened was because of anything you did or didn't do." "Then why did he do it?" "Because he was sick. And broken. And instead of getting help he decided to hurt people. That's on him, not on you." Ava nodded against my shoulder. "I'm glad Jason's my real dad." Yeah. He's nice. And he doesn't yell. And he lets me win at checkers sometimes but not always, which means he respects me." I laughed despite the tears in my eyes. "You're pretty smart, you know that?" "I know." He grinned. "I get it from you." Later that night, after everyone had gone home and Ava had fallen asleep surrounded by presents, Jason helped me clean up. "She asked about David again," I said, scraping frosting off plates. "What did you tell her?" "The truth. As much as she can handle." Jason nodded, quiet for a moment. "Can I tell you something?" "Sure." "I used to wish I could go back and change that night. The night we, I'd lie awake thinking if only I'd called the police instead, if only I'd gotten you help the right way, if only I'd been stronger, then Ava wouldn't exist. And that thought would kill me. Because she's the best thing that ever came from something terrible." "I know what you mean. Do you ever regret it? Having her?" "Never," I said fiercely. "Not once. Not even when I was at my lowest, when David was at his worst, when everything was falling apart. I never regretted her. She's my light, Jason. She's what kept me alive." "Mine too," he said softly. "I didn't know it for a long time, but she's mine too." We finished cleaning in comfortable silence, the kind that comes from shared trauma and mutual understanding, and a daughter who tied us together forever. 5 years later. 5 years after leaving David, I graduated nursing school. Ava, now 12, sat in the front row at the ceremony, cheering louder than anyone when they called my name. Jason recorded it on his phone. My parents cried, Linda, through confetti that got everywhere. "We did it," I told Ava afterward, hugging her tight. "You did it," she corrected. "I just supported you. Like you always support me." I got a job at Grady Memorial Hospital in downtown Atlanta, working in the emergency room. It was demanding, exhausting, sometimes heartbreaking work. But it was mine. I'd earned it. Some nights, I'd see women come in with injuries they claimed were accidents. A fall down the stairs. A door that swung back too hard. A clumsy moment with a kitchen knife. And I'd see myself 5 years ago making excuses, covering up, protecting my abuser. "Ma'am," I'd say gently, quietly when we were alone. "If you're in danger, we can help. There are resources, shelters, legal aid. You don't have to go back." Some women would cry and admit the truth. Others would get defensive, angry that I'd even suggested such a thing. I understood both reactions. I'd been both women. I started volunteering at a domestic violence shelter on my days off. New Beginnings in East Atlanta. I'd lead support groups, share my story, listen to other women's stories. "How did you find the courage to leave?" someone asked during one session. "I didn't," I admitted. "Not at first. Courage came later. At first it was just survival. Just getting through one more day. And then one day became a week, became a month, became a year. And somewhere in all those days I realized I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was living." The parole hearing. 15 years after his conviction, David became eligible for parole. The notification letter arrived on a Tuesday in October 2041. I was 39 years old. Ava was 22, a college senior studying psychology at Spelman College. "They're considering early release," I told Ava over dinner in my apartment. A nicer place now, a 2-bedroom in Virginia Highland that I'd saved for years to afford. Ava's face went pale. Can they do that? After what he did? It's a parole hearing. Doesn't mean they'll grant it. But we can attend, give victim impact statements. I want to go. Ava, you don't have to. I want to go, she repeated firmly. I want to look him in the eye and tell him exactly what he did to me. To us. Jason, now 52 and a senior partner at his renewable energy firm, offered to come with us. For support. You shouldn't have to face him alone. The hearing was held at Hayes State Prison on a cold November morning. We drove up together. Me, Ava, Jason, Linda, who'd insisted on coming, my parents now in their 80s but still sharp as ever. David was brought in wearing prison blues, his hair now completely gray, face lined and weathered. Prison had aged him badly. He was 54 but looked 70. He saw us in the gallery and smiled. That same cold smile, 15 years older but unchanged. The parole board reviewed his case. Good behavior. Participation in prison programs. Psychological evaluations showing significant improvement in emotional regulation and empathy development. His lawyer presented him as a reformed man. Mr. David has spent 15 years reflecting on his actions, attending therapy, educating himself on the impacts of domestic violence and abuse. He deeply regrets his choices and has worked tirelessly to become a better person. Then it was our turn. I went first. My name is Olivia Williams, I said, standing at the podium. 15 years ago, David Brown tried to murder my daughter. But that was just the culmination of years of abuse. Physical, emotional, psychological. He controlled every aspect of my life. He isolated me from friends and family. He made me believe I deserved the beatings, the cruelty, the terror. I detailed everything. The judges, 3 of them, listened impassively. David Brown is dangerous, I concluded. Not because he lost control, but because he was always in control. Every hit was calculated. Every insult was strategic. The poisoning of my daughter was methodical and planned. He didn't snap. He didn't have a moment of madness. He spent months slowly killing a child to punish me and his brother. That's not someone who deserves freedom. That's someone who should never have access to vulnerable people again. Ava went next. She walked to the podium on her slight limp, the reminder of what David had done, permanently etched into her gait. I'm Ava, she said, her voice steady. The daughter David Brown tried to kill. I was 7 years old when I found out the man I called Daddy had been poisoning me. 7. I didn't understand what I'd done wrong. What I could have done differently to make him love me. She looked directly at David. I'm 22 now. I've spent 15 years in therapy. 15 years having nightmares. 15 years dealing with the physical and emotional scars you gave me. And you know what? I'm okay now. Not because of anything you did, but despite everything you did. I forgive you, she continued, and gasps rippled through the room. Even I was shocked. Not because you deserve forgiveness. You don't. But because carrying hatred for you is poisoning me just like the thallium did. So I forgive you for me, not for you. She paused. But forgiveness doesn't mean freedom. Forgiveness doesn't erase what you did. You tried to murder a child. And the board should remember that when they make their decision. David was given a chance to speak. He stood looking at us with those calculating eyes. I'm sorry, he said, and it sounded almost sincere. Almost. I was a broken man who broke others. I've spent 15 years learning to be better. Learning what it means to truly love, to respect, to honor life. If given another chance, I would dedicate myself to making amends, to helping others, to being the man I should have been. The board deliberated for 30 minutes. When they returned, the lead judge spoke. Mr. Brown, while we acknowledge your participation in rehabilitation programs and your stated remorse, the severity and calculated nature of your crimes cannot be overlooked. Your parole is denied. You will be eligible for review again in 5 years. David's face barely changed. Just a slight tightening around his eyes. As they led him away, he looked at Ava one more time. I really am sorry, he said quietly. Ava didn't respond. None of us did. We walked out of that prison into the November sunlight, and I felt something shift in my chest. Relief. Closure. Something. Ava's wedding. 3 years later, Ava got married. She'd met Marcus, no relation to my cousin Emma's husband, in grad school. He was kind, gentle, funny. He knew everything about her past and loved her anyway. The wedding was small, intimate. 40 people at a botanical garden in Atlanta. Flowers everywhere, string quartet playing classical music mixed with Afrobeats. Jason walked her down the aisle, crying openly. I sat in the front row beside my parents watching my daughter, my beautiful, strong, resilient daughter, marry a good man who would never hurt her. During her vows, Ava said, "Marcus, you've shown me what love really looks like. Not control, not possession, not violence disguised as passion. But respect. Partnership. Kindness. Thank you for being patient while I learned to trust again. Thank you for loving me through the nightmares and the therapy and the moments when I was convinced everyone would leave. Thank you for staying." There wasn't a dry eye in the garden. At the reception, Ava pulled me aside. "Thank you, Mama." "For what?" "For being brave enough to leave. For showing me that survival is possible. For never giving up on me or yourself. You saved my life. In every way a person can be saved." We hugged, both crying, mascara running, not caring at all. Later, Jason and I stood together watching Ava dance with Marcus. "We did good," Jason said. "We did," I agreed. "Despite everything, we did good." Do you ever wonder what would have happened if things had been different? If you'd never married David, if that night had never happened? Sometimes. But then I remember, if things had been different, Ava wouldn't exist. And a world without Ava? I can't imagine it. Me neither. We stood in comfortable silence, two people bound by a daughter, by shared trauma, by a past neither could change and a present they'd built from ashes. "Are you happy, Olivia?" Jason asked. I thought about it. About my job at the hospital, my volunteer work at the shelter, my little apartment that was mine and no one else's. About Ava thriving and whole. About the nightmares that still came but less frequently. About the life I'd built piece by painstaking piece. "Yeah," I said, surprised to find it was true. "I am." "Are you?" "Getting there," he said. "Being Ava's dad, really being her dad, that's helped. Therapy helps. Time helps. Forgiving myself. That's the hard part. Join the club." David's death. David died in prison 5 years after the parole hearing. Heart attack at age 59. The notification came from the prison chaplain. A formality since I was still listed as his next of kin in some paperwork that had never been updated. I felt nothing when I heard. Not relief, not satisfaction, not grief. Just nothing. Is that wrong? I asked Dr. Morrison, my therapist of 20 years. "There's no wrong way to feel," she said. "Or not feel. You've processed your trauma with David. His death doesn't change what happened or how you've healed from it." His parents, now in their 90s, arranged a small funeral. I didn't attend. Neither did Jason or Ava. We sent flowers. White lilies, respectful but distant. Margaret called me a week later. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice frail with age. "For not seeing what he was. For not protecting you when I should have. You didn't know. I should have. Mothers are supposed to know. I raised him. Whatever darkness was in him, I missed it. Or maybe I didn't want to see it. David's choices were his own," I said gently. "You didn't make him hurt people. Maybe not. But I didn't stop him either." We talked for a while longer. Margaret told me about James, who had Alzheimer's now and barely remembered who she was most days. About the dry cleaning business they'd sold. About their regrets and hopes and the grandchildren who'd distanced themselves from the Brown name because of the scandal. "Ava's my only grandchild," Margaret said quietly. "I know I have no right to ask, but do you think she'd ever want to see me? I'm not asking to be her grandmother. I'd like to meet the woman she became. To tell her how proud I am that she survived." I promised to ask. When I did, Ava thought about it for a week. "Okay," she finally said. "I'll meet her. Once. For coffee. But I'm not promising anything more than that." They met at a Starbucks in Midtown. I drove Ava there but waited outside, giving them space. An hour later, Ava came out with red eyes but a small smile. "How was it?" I asked. "Sad. She's so old, Mama. And she carries so much guilt." I told her it wasn't her fault. That David made his own choices. "That was kind of you." She showed me pictures of David when he was little. Before he became that. He looked so normal. So happy. It's weird to think he was once just a kid. Everyone starts as just a kid. It's what we choose to become that matters. I know. But it makes you wonder, what happened to him? What broke inside him that made him capable of those things? We'll never know. And maybe that's okay. Some questions don't have answers. The book. When I was 45, a publisher approached me about writing a book. They'd heard about my story through my work at the domestic violence shelter, through the talks I gave at conferences and universities. Your story needs to be told, the editor said. Not just for you but for all the women still trapped, still suffering, still thinking they can't leave. I hesitated. Opening up everything, reliving it all for public consumption. It sounded exhausting. But then I thought about 19-year-old me, confused and scared after that first slap. 20-year-old me covering bruises with makeup. 26-year-old me, leaving with nothing but a bag and a daughter. What would I have wanted to hear back then? That survival was possible. That leaving was possible. That there was life, real, beautiful, messy life, on the other side of abuse. So I wrote the book. Behind the Diamonds, a story of survival, betrayal, and breaking free. It took 3 years to write, with Ava and Jason's input and permission to share their parts of the story. The book came out when I was 48. It became a surprise bestseller, hitting the New York Times list for 16 weeks. Women wrote to me by the thousands, sharing their stories, asking for advice, thanking me for giving them hope. I did interviews, book tours, speaking engagements. It was overwhelming and healing all at once. During one interview on NPR, the host asked, "What would you say to women currently in abusive relationships?" I thought about it carefully. I'd say, you're not crazy. You're not overreacting. You're not weak. Abuse is designed to make you question your reality, to make you think you're the problem. You're not. And you deserve better. And when they say they can't leave, I'd say, I understand. Leaving is terrifying. It's dangerous. It's financially impossible, socially complicated, emotionally devastating. But staying will kill you, maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but eventually. And you deserve to live. Not just survive. Live. At 52 years old, I became the director of New Beginnings, the domestic violence shelter where I'd volunteered for over 20 years. It felt like coming full circle, from victim to survivor to advocate to leader. Ava, now 32 with 2 children of her own, came to the ribbon-cutting ceremony for our new facility. A larger space funded partly by proceeds from my book. "I'm so proud of you, Mama," she said, holding her daughter, my granddaughter Olivia Jr., while her son David Jr. played nearby. I'd frozen when she told me her son's name. "You named him David?" "After redemption," Ava explained. "Not after him. I'm taking back the name. Making it mean something beautiful instead of something terrible. Is that okay? It's your choice, baby. If it feels right to you, then it's right." Little David had Jason's smile, that wide, bright, innocent grin. And he had Ava's resilience, her strength. He'd never know the man he was named after, the monster who'd tried to kill his mother. He'd only know love, safety, family. That evening, at home in my house. A real house now, a 3-bedroom in Grant Park with a garden where I grew tomatoes and basil. I sat on my porch and thought about the journey. 19 to 52. From a terrified bride to a grandmother, nurse, author, advocate. From victim to survivor. From trapped to free. Was it worth it? The question itself was wrong. It wasn't about worth. It was about survival. About choosing life over death, freedom over captivity, truth over comfortable lies. I thought about David, dead now for 6 years. About Jason, who'd proven himself as a father and finally, slowly, forgiven himself. About Ava, thriving and whole and breaking generational curses with every choice she made. About my mother, who'd eventually admitted she'd been wrong to tell me to endure. About my father, who'd learned that protection meant teaching your daughter she deserved respect, not teaching her to accept disrespect. About Linda, who'd never stopped being my friend even when I pushed her away. About the thousands of women I'd helped through the shelter, through my book, through my talks. Women who'd left abusers, rebuilt lives, rediscovered themselves. Every time I see someone smile while suffering inside, I recognize it. That performance of happiness, that mask of normalcy covering a world of pain. I see it because I lived it. And now I try to reach through that mask to whisper, you don't have to pretend. Not with me. I know. I see you. And you can survive this. People hide their pain because pain is vulnerable, because vulnerability is dangerous, because danger has taught them to wear masks. Because society tells us to be strong, and somewhere along the way we confused strength with silence. But real strength isn't silent. Real strength is screaming when you need to scream. It's leaving when you need to leave. It's asking for help when you can't do it alone. Real strength is surviving. And then when you're ready, helping others survive too. I'm 55 now. Ava's 35 with 3 kids and a thriving practice as a family therapist specializing in childhood trauma. She's incredible at what she does. Probably because she understands trauma from the inside. Jason and I are friends. Real friends. We co-host holidays, coordinate grandparent schedules, attend Ava's kids' events together. He remarried 5 years ago to a woman named Patricia, a teacher who's kind and patient and everything he deserves. I'm genuinely happy for him. I never remarried. I dated occasionally over the years, but nothing serious. Some women need a partner to feel complete. I learned I'm complete on my own. And that's okay. My parents passed away. Dad at 88, Mom at 90. They went peacefully, holding hands in the nursing home where they'd spent their final years. Before he died, Dad told me, "I'm proud of you. Not for enduring. For leaving. For choosing yourself and your daughter. That's the bravest thing a person can do." Linda and I still meet for coffee every Sunday. We're both gray now, both tired, both still laughing at terrible jokes and finishing each other's sentences like we did when we were 12. The shelter I run has helped over 3,000 women and children in the past few years. We have a 24-hour hotline, emergency housing, legal advocates, job training, therapy services. We save lives every day. Sometimes former clients come back to volunteer, to give back, to help the next generation of survivors. That's when I know the work matters. That's when I know I made the right choice. Because leaving David wasn't just about me. It was about Ava. About showing her that women don't have to accept violence. That love shouldn't hurt. That we deserve respect, safety, autonomy. And it was about all the women I'd eventually help. The ones still trapped. The ones just starting to question if this is really what marriage should be. The ones planning their escape. The ones who've left but don't know how to rebuild. Would I have done things differently? Of course. I would have left sooner. I would have reported David the first time he hit me. I would have protected Ava better. But regret is a luxury I can't afford. I did the best I could with what I knew at the time. And when I knew better, I did better. That's all any of us can do. What would you have done if you were in her shoes? This is the question people always ask. But it's the wrong question. The right question is, what can we do now to prevent women from ever being in those shoes? We can teach boys that violence is never acceptable. We can teach girls that they deserve respect. We can believe women when they tell us they're being hurt. We can make it easier, financially, socially, legally, to leave abusive relationships. We can stop asking, "Why didn't she leave?" and start asking, "Why didn't he stop hitting her?" In Olivia's story, she chose not to. She chose healing over romance, autonomy over partnership, friendship over anything more complicated. And that worked for her. But every survivor's journey is different. Some find love again. Some don't want to. Some build families. Some choose solitude. There's no right answer, only what's right for each individual. The important thing is that Olivia had a choice. After years of having no choices, of being controlled and manipulated, she got to decide her own path. That's what freedom looks like. Does David deserve forgiveness? Ava chose to forgive him, not for his sake but for hers. Because carrying that hatred was poisoning her just like the thallium had. But forgiveness is personal. Olivia didn't forgive David. Does David deserve forgiveness? Ava chose to forgive him, not for his sake but for hers. Because carrying that hatred was poisoning her just like the thallium had. But forgiveness is personal. Forgiveness isn't about the abuser. It's about the survivor finding peace. Whether that peace comes through forgiveness or through acceptance without forgiveness is up to each individual. What David did was unforgivable by any objective standard. The question isn't whether he deserves forgiveness. It's whether his victims need to forgive him to heal. And sometimes the answer is no. This is the question that makes people uncomfortable. Because forgiveness is complicated. The church ladies at my parents' congregation used to tell me I needed to forgive David. That holding on to anger would poison me. That God commands forgiveness. And maybe they were right about the poison part. Hatred is heavy. It weighs you down. It takes up space in your heart that could be filled with better things. But forgiveness doesn't mean what most people think it means. It doesn't mean saying what you did was okay. It doesn't mean reconciliation. It doesn't mean forgetting. I never forgave David. Not in the traditional sense. I acknowledged what he did. I processed it in therapy. I stopped letting it control my life. But I never absolved him of responsibility. I never said, it's okay. Because it wasn't okay. It will never be okay. And I'm at peace with that. My healing didn't require forgiving him. It required accepting what happened, grieving what I lost, and building something new from the ashes. Does David deserve forgiveness? That's the wrong question. The right question is, do I need to forgive him to be free? And my answer was no. Your answer might be different. And that's okay. Why do people hide their pain? Because we live in a world that rewards performance. That values strength over vulnerability. That treats victims like problems to be solved rather than people to be supported. Because admitting abuse means admitting your marriage. The thing everyone said was so perfect. Is actually hell. It means disappointing people who believed in you. It means facing the reality that you made a terrible choice and now you're trapped in it. Because leaving is dangerous. Statistically, the most dangerous time for an abuse victim is right after they leave. Abusers escalate. They become violent. They sometimes kill. Because society makes it nearly impossible to leave. Where will you go with no money, no job, no support system? How will you feed your kids? How will you start over? Because shame is powerful. Victims often internalize the abuse, believing they somehow caused it, somehow deserve it. Because hope is stubborn. Maybe he'll change. Maybe it'll get better. Maybe I just need to try harder. Hope keeps people trapped longer than fear ever could. But here's the truth. You don't have to hide your pain. You don't have to suffer in silence. You don't have to wait for him to change. You can leave. It's terrifying and complicated and might be the hardest thing you ever do. But you can leave. And when you do, there will be people waiting to help you rebuild. Shelters. Advocates. Therapists. Other survivors who've walked the path before you and will walk it with you now. You deserve to smile without pretending. You deserve to feel joy that's real. You deserve to live without fear. You deserve to be free. If you or someone you know is experiencing domestic violence, please reach out to National Domestic Violence Hotline. 1-800-799-7233. Help is available. You are not alone. The questions that matter. As I sit here at 55 writing these final words in my journal overlooking my garden in Grant Park, I think about all the people who've asked me questions over the years. Questions at book signings, after speaking engagements, in therapy sessions at the shelter, in late-night messages from strangers who've read my story. What would you have done if you were in my shoes? This question always makes me smile sadly. Because you can't know what you'd do until you're there. Until you're 19 and in love and believe that marriage is forever. Until the first slap comes and you're so shocked you think it must be a mistake. Until you're trapped, financially, emotionally, socially, and every exit seems more dangerous than staying. I used to think I'd never be that woman. The one who stays. The one who makes excuses. The one who covers bruises with makeup and lies with smiles. Then I became her. So what would I have done differently? I would have trusted my instincts. When Linda said 6 months wasn't long enough to know someone, I would have listened. When David's grip was too tight during our wedding photos, I would have paid attention. When he slapped me that first time, I would have walked out immediately and never looked back. But I didn't know what I know now. None of us do until we learn the hard way. What I can tell you is this. If you're reading this and you see yourself in my story, if your partner controls you, isolates you, hurts you, then apologizes and promises to change, please hear me. It doesn't get better. It only gets worse. And you deserve so much more than you're accepting. Should I continue with Jason? People ask me this like there's a right answer. Like love stories are supposed to follow a script where the woman who suffers ends up with the good man who saves her. But Jason didn't save me. I saved myself. And Ava saved me. And Linda saved me. And therapy and time and determination saved me. Jason and I created a daughter from a moment of weakness and pain. We share a history that's complicated and messy and stained with trauma. Could we have built something romantic from that foundation? Maybe. Some people do. But I chose not to. I chose to be alone. To rebuild myself without leaning on another man, even a good one. To prove to myself that I could stand on my own 2 feet. And you know what? That was the right choice for me. Not for everyone, just for me. Some survivors find love again and it's beautiful. Some become friends with unlikely people. Some retreat into solitude and that's okay too. There's no one way to heal. No prescribed path. You get to choose. The important thing, the only thing that truly matters, is that you have the freedom to choose. After years of having every choice controlled by someone else, making my own decisions felt like breathing after drowning. Jason is a good father to Ava. A good grandfather to her children. A good friend to me. That's enough. That's more than enough. And I'm happy for him and Patricia. Genuinely happy. Because his happiness doesn't threaten mine. We're not in competition anymore. We're just two people who share a daughter and did our best to help her thrive despite our mistakes. Have you ever seen someone smile while suffering inside? Why do you think people hide their pain? We hide our pain because vulnerability is dangerous. Because admitting struggle feels like admitting failure. Because we've learned that people don't want to hear about the darkness. They want the Instagram version of our lives. I hid my pain behind designer clothes and expensive vacations and social media posts. Pi King, I'd write while my king was beating me at home. Blessed, I'd caption while feeling cursed every single day. It meant being weak. And I'd been taught my whole life that women needed to be strong. That wives needed to endure. That suffering in silence was noble. But here's what I know now. Hiding pain doesn't make you strong. It makes you trapped. Real strength is saying, this is not okay. Real strength is asking for help. Real strength is leaving even when it's terrifying. Real strength is surviving and then when you're ready helping others survive too. So if you see someone smiling while suffering, and you will because they're everywhere, don't look away. Don't accept the performance. Ask the hard questions. Offer the safe space. Be the person who sees through the mask. Because I needed someone to see through mine. And when Jason finally did, when he found me bleeding on that bathroom floor, it was the beginning of my long journey to freedom. What I want you to know. If you're in an abusive relationship right now, please hear these truths. It's not your fault. You didn't cause this. You don't deserve this. Nothing you did, or didn't do, justifies violence, control, or cruelty. You're not crazy. Abusers are masters at making you question your reality, making you think you're overreacting, making you believe you're the problem. You're not. Your feelings are valid. Your fears are real. You're not alone. Millions of women and men are experiencing what you're experiencing right now. There are people who understand, who've been there, who've survived, who want to help you survive too. You can leave. I know it doesn't feel like it. I know the obstacles seem insurmountable. The money, the kids, the fear, the shame, the what-ifs. But you can leave. People do it every day. And there are resources, shelters, advocates waiting to help you. It won't get better on its own. I stayed because I hoped David would change. Because after each beating he'd apologize and promise never again. But abusers don't change without intensive intervention. And even then rarely. The pattern only escalates. Leaving is dangerous but staying might kill you. Statistically, the most dangerous time is right after leaving. But staying comes with risks too. Escalating violence. Psychological damage. Teaching your children that abuse is normal. Slowly losing yourself until there's nothing left. You deserve more than survival, you deserve to thrive. A life without fear. Without walking on eggshells. Without checking your phone 17 times a day or explaining every minute you're gone. A life where you can breathe freely, laugh genuinely, make your own choices. To every woman reading this who sees herself in my story, I see you. I believe you. You're not crazy, you're not overreacting, you're not alone. And you can survive this. One day at a time. One breath at a time. One brave decision at a time. If you take nothing else from my story, take this. You are stronger than you know. Braver than you believe. More deserving of love and respect and peace than anyone has told you. And survival? Survival is possible. Not easy. God knows it's not easy. But possible. I'm proof. Ava's proof. The thousands of women who've walked through the doors of New Beginnings Shelter are proof. You can do this. And you don't have to do it alone. If you are in immediate danger, call 911. You deserve to be safe. You deserve to be loved without fear. You deserve to live freely. Help is available. You are not alone. Please don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment for more interesting topics.